I told him a story because I moved a lot as a child. I said, when the family is moving in a certain direction and you want to change, you're changing locations, you're changing jobs, there comes a point where the kids crying about their old friends and they don't want to leave. And you're like, get in the car, we're going to go and we're going to leave because we're a family and that's what we do. We stay together and we don't leave anybody behind. I think they made a movie about it.
There probably aren't going to be a whole lot of movies made about today's Syracuse and Pittsburgh game at Yankee Stadium. But if there were, that movie would be titled Backflips in a Baseball Stadium. We'll tell you why, we'll show you the highlights from a 28-13 Cuse victory over the Panthers, and a whole lot more. This is Orange Press Pass, and it starts right now. Hey, welcome into the CitrusTV studios. I'm Andrew Selover alongside Klaff and Della Piana here for OPP after a Syracuse 28-13 victory over Pittsburgh. And the Orange and Panthers have played every year since the 50s, but most of those matchups have been in the Salt City or the Steel City. And today's matchup was actually in the Bronx at the Cathedral of Baseball, as some would call it. Because Syracuse and Pittsburgh played there 100 years ago, the first time that football was ever played at Yankee Stadium. And that game finished a 3-0 victory for Syracuse. Pop Warner was the coach for Pittsburgh, and there were 25,000 people in attendance. Today, only 17,000 people in attendance, a little bit more scoring, but the Orange's offense looked like it might have been run by Pop Warner. Annie, we'll go to you first. Your first thoughts on Syracuse's victory.
Put simply, just versatility. I mean, this Orange offense had to be very creative going into it, especially without quarterback Carlos Del Rio Wilson with an injury. Garrett Schrader had an injury on his arm. So Syracuse's offense had to be very creative in what they had to do, which is why lots of wildcat quarterbacks came into play, and leading to 382 yards on the ground.
You hit the nail on the head right there, Annie. My first thought, what did Sandra Bullock say in The Blind Side? Run the dang ball. 382 yards for this rushing offense of SU, the second most under head coach Dino Babers. Just a couple of weeks ago, this team had zero rushing yards against a Virginia Tech team that was much worse than Pitt was. They allowed 40 more rushing yards on the ground than the Panthers did, but they had a field day at Yankee Stadium.
Run the dang ball, they did, Andrew. And we'll show you the highlights between Syracuse and Pittsburgh and waste no time. The Orange entered at 4-5, so still a lot to play for Syracuse, with a bowl game still up for grabs. That not on the line for the Panthers at 2-7. And early on, first drive of the game, the Orange on a 5-game losing streak, offense struggling, but it didn't look like it. A 5-minute drive capped off by a Max Mang first career touchdown to put the Orange up 7-0, but Syracuse would struggle a bit, getting creative and maybe a little too creative. Garrett Schrader fumbles the ball on a pitch from LaQuint Allen, and the Orange give it up. That turned into a field goal for the Panthers. But Annie, what's Garrett Schrader doing here? It wasn't all sadness.
A prime example of Syracuse's creativity today and an attempt to distract the Pittsburgh offense, but didn't work so much.
Yeah, it didn't work in the first half. Kanata Mumfield with a 10-yard touchdown. A 13-7 lead at the half for the Panthers, but then things turned the other way. A fumble from Christian Veillard, the quarterback, recovered by Jaden Bellamy, and the Orange would capitalize, going for it on 4th and 1, and Garrett Schrader using his legs. Arm might be hurt, but the legs certainly aren't. Syracuse back in front 14-13, and that would change in an instant, because this is a Jaden Bellamy, another takeaway, and this time it turns into 6 on the pick 6 from Christian Veillard, and he wasn't quite done giving up the football. A third turnover of the half. This time Terry Lockett comes away with it. The Orange trying to add on to a 21-13 lead, and Syracuse would go to its tight end, more like a running back, Dan Valori, 27 yards out and pay dirt. Cuse by 15. And what would look like just a routine first down pickup for Rodney Hammond with 4 minutes left in the quarter would actually turn out to be a fumble recovered by the Orange. Kayvon Darton takes it away, and the Orange salted away a 28-13 victory to get off the losing streak and get one step closer to a bowl game.
The story of tonight's game is this ground game, 382 yards on the ground. so different than against Virginia Tech.
And how about the tight end Dan Villari rushing for north of 150 yards? He's not supposed to do that. That's the running back shove. It was LaQuinn Allen who put on a show last weekend going north of 140 yards, and then the tight end, 154, completely unheard of.
And not to mention Syracuse getting its first win in conference play this season.
The Orange 2 games left, and Syracuse now just 1 win away from a bowl game in a back-to-back seasons. We now welcome in our Citrus TV reporter down from Yankee Stadium. Philip Galati is with us. And Phil, I know obviously a change in venues. I've got to know, walk us through your kind of adventure at Yankee Stadium and what a football atmosphere was like down in a baseball stadium.
Well, Andrew, I think the word adventure describes it perfectly. Samuel Corcoran and I, our lovely man behind the camera, we've been here since 8:30 in the morning, and the first thing we saw when we got to the Big Apple was 3 people wearing Syracuse merch. Tons of Syracuse fans, tons of Pitt fans, and honestly, the game day environment was spectacular. It's not like the Dome, of course. You're not going to expect those numbers, but still, you had people there in numbers. Syracuse fans, by the way, staying till the end, which is not something that they've done for a couple games this season. You could hear the band, you could hear the PA. There was just a totally different atmosphere, and of course, getting to explore the city during the day is an adventure all on its own.
Philip, 4 forced turnovers from this Orange defense and holding the Panthers scoreless in the second half. What kind of made that shift for this Orange defense in the second half?
We actually just lost Philip there for a second, so we'll talk a little bit more about this Syracuse victory over the Panthers. The Orange go to 5-5 on the season, and Syracuse just 1 step closer to a bowl game in back-to-back seasons. Andrew, what was the most impressive thing from the Orange today?
I think it was their ground attack. As I mentioned it before, 0 rushing yards in a couple of weeks ago against Virginia Tech. A lot more potent here at Yankee Stadium today.
Well, we've actually got Philip Galati back on the line, so let's take 2, Annie, with Philip Galati down in the Bronx.
All right, Philip. So Syracuse defense forced 4 turnovers in the second half and held the Panthers scoreless in the second half. What was kind of a shift in the locker room that you would have noticed for that defensive performance?
Hey, Annie, thanks for not forgetting about me. Live TV. Sometimes stuff happens, right? But hey, it's really good to be here at Yankee Stadium. That shift that you're talking about was right at the end of the third quarter going into the fourth. The Jaden Bellamy pick 6. Because right before that play, LaQuinn Allen got things to the half-yard line, couldn't convert. Bellamy gets that pick 6, which, by the way, the kid's from North Jersey, so his family and friends were here to see him step up. He's worked his way into the starting lineup this year. And then following that up was the Dan Villari touchdown. This was something that Syracuse couldn't do against BC. They dropped 5 picks, which was one problem. The second problem was when they had any defensive momentum, they couldn't turn it into offensive success. That was what changed with the Bellamy pick 6. Right from the tail end of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, the defense was able to spur the offense.
Phil, you mentioned it, a complete momentum shift in that second half, and with that, SU picks up its 5th win of the season. And I know you're an avid Red Sox fan, so being down there at Yankee Stadium might have hurt the heart a little bit. But back to SU football, the bowl outlook now. As I mentioned, 5th win for this team now, 2 games left in the regular season. What does the outlet look like now for the rest of the campaign?
Well, I think the outlook, you can look at it one of 2 ways, right? First of all, it's all going to depend on whether they go with the Wildcat offense again, because Villari was under center, Schrader was under center, LaQuinn Allen was under center, right? You had LaQuinn Allen go for triple digits, Dan Villari had a touchdown. There's a lot of different ways this offense can look, and there's only 2 games left in the regular season. So whether they decide to put more tricks back up their sleeve with this Wildcat offense, I think they go to Georgia Tech, and that's going to be a tough one. Even though the Yellow Jackets have the worst rushing defense in the ACC, it's a hot team, and it's on the road. It's going to be tough. Meanwhile, Wake Forest, that's a home game. I think when you have time to look at the film, they might be able to get a bowl out of this season.
Well, thanks as always, Phil, down in New York City. Make sure to stay away from the sirens as you get your way back here to Syracuse. And as always, go Sox. It's time for our first break here on Orange Press Pass, but make sure to stick with us. When we come back, we'll show you more highlights, we'll dig into the numbers a bit more, and hand out our OPP Player of the Game. You don't want to miss it.
to an excellent episode of Live from Studio B. Welcome to an excellent episode of Live from Studio B.
We're back here on Orange Press Pass. I'm Andrew Selover, Annie Klaff, and Andrew Della Piana with me. Diving in a little bit more in depth to Syracuse's 28-13 win down at Yankee Stadium over Pittsburgh. The Orange go to 5-5 on the season. And one of the keys today, Annie, for the Orange was the defensive play. On a 5-game losing streak, Syracuse struggled mightily until the last game against Boston College, when the Orange showed a lot of fight, and SU showed a lot more fight today on the defensive side of the ball.
And especially in that second half, 4 first turnovers for the Orange defense, and also going scoreless for the Panthers in that second half. And a huge part of this was because of Marlo Wax, who had accounted for 7 solo tackles. This Orange defense really showed up today, especially in that second half. But you'll take a look at the difference between the short run game and those longer routes. Syracuse kind of struggled on a few of those longer passes.
They took full advantage of the opportunity that Pitt does not have the best offense in the ACC. Pick 6 special teams were going to play a very important part of this game because these two teams are such low scoring. SU, with those 4 turnovers, has a takeaway in 58 of their last 81 games, and I'd say Rocky Long put on his best defensive performance as a unit this season.
And you can see the defensive yards allowed go down from 500 towards 250, and that turns into a W in the win-loss column. And another spot for Syracuse, the Orange were pretty healthy on defense, not quite as healthy in the quarterback room, and that created some changes. What did you make of Jason Beck and the offensive play calling today for Syracuse, Andrew?
I'll take that one first, Sally, and that's because they set the tone on the offensive drive with that touchdown. And that's because it took 10 plays, 9 rushes, 1 pass. Is this something we've seen from Syracuse all year long? Absolutely not. This team has really struggled to get off with leads. Their first opening drive touchdown after 7 straight games with a punt or turnover and that big play ability. 14 or more plays tonight that had 10 or more rushing yards. It was just spectacular to see this team run all over the field.
And Syracuse got lucky having Garrett Schrader, who had played as a wide receiver at Mississippi State before coming to Syracuse, and Dan Villari, who played as a quarterback at Michigan. So they got really lucky with that ability to even play this Wildcat quarterback role.
You mentioned Dan Villari, and coming into the day, 9 games played, 3 rushing yards. Today, 154 yards for the tight end on the ground. He was unbelievable, virtually unstoppable.
And he said in the post-game press conference that he's used to being that wildcat, run quarterback. He's used to making those runs, and he's also used to kind of getting the ball instead of just in a tight end atmosphere. However, he did account for 2 fumbles with this Syracuse offense, but Dan Villari really came in clutch in that Wildcat role, and again, accounting for 154 rushing yards today compared to 3 before early in the season.
Incredible, isn't it, right? Syracuse has been looking for tight end production for so long, and they finally got that today, not from the passing version, but from the rushing version. Damian Alford, Donovan Brown, Umari Hatcher have not filled Aronde Gadsden's shoes, but Dan Villari, the transfer from Michigan, filled that role perfectly today, and a much-needed victory to snap that 5-game losing streak.
And not only did Dan Villari fill up the stat sheet, he also earned high praise from his head coach, Dino Babers, after the game. Take a listen.
And I still believe, I love when I say that, I still believe, I'm saying that humbly, that he's going to be an NFL tight end. I really believe he has the ability to do all that.
And whether he's going to be an NFL tight end down the road is still to be seen. But one thing's for sure, Dan Villari is our Orange Press Pass player of the game because he put on a show at Yankee Stadium today in front of all his family and friends who grew up on Long Island with him. 154 rushing yards, and the former quarterback used his arm just a little bit, 3 for 5 in the passing game for 12 yards as well. He put in all the effort to get Syracuse off the losing streak and a victory against the Panthers. We'll talk more about that victory against Pitt for SU when we return, and we'll make some baseball comparisons because at the end of the day, this game was played in a baseball stadium. Stick with us for some fun after the break.
Norm. He lives with anxiety, but with the help of this latest innovation from Be Normal, he can be normal, just like everyone else. With the swipe of a finger, you can project happiness, confidence, machismo. Why settle for being real when you can be normal? The Normal Maker, new from Be Normal. This item doesn't really work because there's no such thing as normal. We're all different. What we like, how our brains work. In fact, 1 in 5 of us live with mental illness. Don't filter who you are. Start by talking to someone you trust. And remember, there is no normal.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a 4th ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Back here on Orange Press Pass, Andrew Selover, Annie Klaff, Andrew Della, Piana. We haven't left, and Syracuse football certainly didn't leave Yankee Stadium or the house that Ruth built, or for our generation, maybe the house that Jeter built, without a loss today, or without a win today, I should say. 28-13 victors over the Panthers. And because it was played at a baseball stadium, we got to have some fun with that. We're going to play a game called What's the Count? So I'm going to pitch you a player, a coach, somebody involved, and you're going to tell us what the count is in terms of baseball ball strikes on that player. We'll start off with you, Annie, and we'll start with LeQuint Allen, 102 rushing yards today, 5th game this season, over 100 yards on the ground. What's the count on LeQuint Allen?
Things are looking good for LaQuinn Allen. I'm giving him 3-0 for that count. He was expected to be a really strong player, especially a keystone for this Syracuse offense. Going into this game, leading fourth in the ACC with 7 rushing touchdowns and had 28 carries today. So he was expected to show out today, and he really did, especially when there's struggles with this Syracuse offense in terms of who's going to hold the pack with quarterbacks.
I'd say so, Annie. And if I'm the third base coach of LaQuinn Allen, you know what I'm doing? I'm giving him that green lights. Put that at a 3-0 count for me, Annie, and that's because LaQuinn Allen, he has played relatively well at Yankee Stadium. North of 150 yards at Yankee Stadium. Andrew mentioned it. 5th straight game where he has recorded over 100 yards, so when he's up 3-0 in the count and the third base coach gives him the sign, you let him swing.
Okay, so it sounds a lot like LaQuinn Allen is almost surely getting on base, if you get what I mean. We'll go to the coaching side of things. We talked about the offensive play calling. Had to switch it up a little bit today without a really healthy quarterback to throw the ball around. Jason Beck, first year calling plays as the offensive coordinator for the Orange. Andrew, what's the count on Jason Beck?
I'm going a full 3-2 count for Jason Beck, the offensive coordinator. 66 rushes, 382 yards for offense. They had over 6 yards per carry in this game. Where did this come from all season long? Dan Villari's now the running back. LaQuinn Allen had north of 100 yards, and then an injured Garrett Trader was fine as usual. He had some struggles early in the season, but now he's working his way back. I can't figure this guy out.
Now I'm going 2-1 for Jason Beck. Obviously today was a really strong game for this offense and for the Syracuse team, and especially for Jason Beck, leading with 28-13 win. You got to be really creative with this win, and especially with an offense with these struggles in filling a quarterback position. But after an abysmal season in this conference, only 1 win, and that's today's, I'm still going 2-1.
All right.
I'm not sure how in your first year as the offensive coordinator you wind up with a full count already at the end of the season.
Hey, it's a long at bat, a lot of foul balls. So.
I guess. I thought we would have been a little earlier in the count, but that's okay. Let's go from one coach to another. Let's talk about the head coach, Dino Babers. A lot of chatter over the last few weeks about the status of Dino Babers' coaching job. But let's talk about what his count's at after today's victory, Annie.
Dino Babers has struck out, in my opinion.
Oh, come on.
He is out. I'm saying that after this season and after his years as head coach for Syracuse, 19-44 in ACC play, that is not good, especially when you're the head coach since 2018. His only winning season in conference play was in 2018, just his third year as head coach.
All right, that's a little harsh, Annie. I'm going to give him not the strikeout yet, but he's facing a 1-2 count. Definitely has struggled this year, and in his time against Pitt. 2-6 now against this Panthers group since he took over in 2016, and he got a lot of flack for the performance he's put on in the last 5 games of the season, but you got to give him a lot of credit. He had a game plan this week, followed that script perfection. Garrett Trader didn't have to throw the football. LaQuinn Allen gets a lot of carries, and Dan Villari's involved in the offense. I'm okay with that.
Annie on the harsh side there.
Gotta be a pessimist sometimes.
All right.
Hey, she's the strict coach at the end of the bench. It's
I guess so. A little food for thought. Syracuse is 1 win away from back-to-back bowl games, and the Orange have only accomplished that once since 2000. We'll leave you with that for now. Andrew, what time is it? Send us to break.
Coming up,
We'll talk about the rest of the NCAA. What's going on in the world of college football? A check-in on the ACC standings and take a look at what's next for Syracuse football.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
Yeah, I know. That's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm going to get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Stem is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, you, your football buddy, your football buddy, you, your plumber,
Breathe right into your foot.
your plumber's masseuse,
Yes.
you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. With early diagnosis, pre-diabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back here to the Citrus TV studio. I'm Andrew Selover, Annie Klaff, Andrew Della, Piana still with you as we round out Orange Press Pass after a Syracuse 28-13 win over Pittsburgh at Yankee Stadium. But there's plenty of other things going on in the world of college football, namely Jim Harbaugh suspended for 3 games to end the regular season at Michigan, but it didn't matter today for the Wolverines, Andrew.
I'd say so, Andrew, and that's because a bloody Blake Corum rushed for 145 yards, 2 touchdowns. You alluded to it. No Jim Harbaugh, no problem. Head coach James Franklin of Penn State now 1-14 when facing Ohio State and Michigan this year, and he just can't get the Wolverine monkey off their back no matter who they play.
Annie, what else sticks out to you?
I'm taking a look at this number 4 Florida State team winning 27-20 over Miami. That's a team that beat Syracuse 41-3. Now this game was actually pretty even on paper, going 335 total yards to 322. That 322 was FSU, but they came out on top.
Georgia doubling up Ole Miss at the half, and the Crimson Tide just keep on rolling on the road at Kentucky with a 28-point victory. Interesting out in the Pac-12, Washington a couple struggles as of late, but still undefeated, so there's a whole lot left to play for in the entire country for the college football playoff, and there's a lot left to play for in the Atlantic Coast Conference. When you take a look at the standings, 2 teams have separated at the top, not quite locked in the conference championship, but Florida State already clinched its ticket and undefeated, and Louisville knocking on the doorstep. 2 teams that, Andrew, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think still have a chance, both of them, at the playoff.
Absolutely. I'm very surprised Louisville is still in the mix against Florida State. Let me remind you, the Cardinals lost to the Panthers team that Syracuse, not shellacked, but handled them pretty well. And you notice how you don't see Syracuse on that at all? Nevertheless, they picked up their first win in conference play, but right at the bottom of the barrel at 1-5. Not even good enough to show on our graphic. Oh, there it is. Perfect.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, we fit them in there. Well, they're
need another page for it. But
basically tied with 4 teams at the bottom. Before today, though, it was pretty ugly for Syracuse, Annie.
Yes, Syracuse was at that bottom, and then you take a look at when we were talking about earlier about head coach Dino Babers, things look a little bit better for him there, and not so much a strikeout, except if he were at the bottom.
Rounding out Orange Press Pass, actually the final OPP covering Syracuse football, because it's time to shift to basketball season. A big one for the Orange coming up at 2-0 on Tuesday against Colgate, a Raiders team that has had the Orange's number the last 2 seasons.
We'll go ahead.
2 wins for the Raiders inside the Dome against the Orange. It's Colgate. It's not Duke. It's not North Carolina. It's Colgate. This matchup should not be that difficult for SU.
The Orange and the Raiders coming in, a big matchup. Annie, what do you look out for in that one?
Well, this is going to be a huge chance for Syracuse to bounce back after those 2 losses in a row. Those are Colgate's only 2 wins against Syracuse in all of its total series history. So Syracuse is going to have to really come back this time around, especially with Judah Mintz, who led the team last year in points as a freshman with 20.
Syracuse and Colgate tip off at 7 in the Dome on Tuesday. Join us on Citrus TV at 11 o'clock for Orange Press Pass. As we wind down here on OPP, it's time for our final thoughts. Annie, I go to you first. Syracuse wins by 15. What do you take away from this win?
With this type of run game today, Syracuse has got to keep that going. getting its first win in 6 games and first win in conference play. You might as well keep it going and keep that momentum with that run game, just like today, and keep it going into the next 2 games to get that bowl game.
They'd love to get the bowl game. So my question is, going in those final 2 those final 2 regular season games, is where has this been all season long? Dan Villari, as versatile as he is, as point of attack as he was today, out of the backfield, in the formation that he was, all by his lonesome in the backfield. Why didn't Jason Beck utilize him earlier in the season? He used to be a quarterback. Now he's a tight end. He played like a quarterback today. And if that's going to be the script going forward all year long, they might have some more success, Annie.
Georgia Tech and Wake Forest to round out the season for Syracuse. Did the Orange make a bowl game real quick? Annie?
I'm going yes.
Andrew?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
2 people in belief for Syracuse football to
Not
finish
always
up.
a pessimist.
Okay, that's fair enough. That'll finish up Orange Press Pass here at Citrus TV. For Andrew and Annie, I'm Andrew Selover signing off. Good night, everyone.